A significant tropical cyclone is bearing down on Western Australia's northwest coast, heavy rainfall across the Kimberley, extreme heat building through the southern states, and long-range signals suggesting something substantial developing in the Coral Sea for early February. That is what we're re-looking at this Friday, the 23rd of January. I've been analysing the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, and there's a fair bit to unpack here. Two immediate concerns and one longer-term pattern that deserves your attention. Right now, conditions across the country are about as varied as you can get. Up in the northwest, a tropical low is intensifying offshore. Down south, temperatures are climbing. And for those on the eastern seaboard, you are stuck in a pattern that is not shifting anytime soon. Let us start with the immediate threat. Western Australia, northwest coast. Tropical low 16U is positioned roughly 500 kilometres northwest of Broome. This system has been slowly organising throughout today, but at sea encountered something that put the brakes on its development. Wind shear, higher level winds cutting across the system. This morning the system looked more organised, deeper convection, better structure. That has changed this afternoon. The shower and thunderstorm activity isn't as intense as it was earlier. Wind shear does that. It disrupts the circulation, stops the system from wrapping up as tightly as it otherwise might. Still, this remains a significant weather event for the Derby area and the northern Kimberley coastline. The Bureau has issued a cyclone watch from south of Broome up to the Mitchell Plateau. A cyclone warning is in effect for Cape Leveque, Derby and Curie Bay. Those warnings are there for good reason. If you in these areas and you haven't started preparations, now the time. This isn't a cause for panic, but it's not something to ignore either. The forecast track has this system crossing the coast Saturday morning, most likely somewhere between Cape Leveque and Curie Bay. Derby sits right in that zone. Current modelling from the European Centre shows a landfall around Derby with reasonable confidence in that general area. Wind speeds at landfall are expected to reach Category 2 strength. That sustained winds between 125 to 140 kilometres per hour, gusts higher than that in the immediate landfall zone. Now, this is the second cyclone to impact this stretch of coast in as many months. Cyclone Haley crossed through a very similar area back in late December. You remember that one. For a while, this system looked like it might follow a similar path to intensification. It was in favourable conditions, warm sea surface temperatures, low wind shear initially. The ingredients were there for rapid strengthening, but conditions have changed. The wind shear has increased. That's taken some of the sting out of this system's potential. We're no longer looking at a severe tropical cyclone. Still a significant impact, but not the extreme event it might have been. The wind threat is relatively contained. This is a sparsely populated stretch of coastline. The communities that are there, like Derby, are well practiced in cyclone preparedness. You know the drill. For Broome, you are positioned far enough south that the worst winds should stay offshore. Broome is likely to experience offshore winds as this system tracks. That actually works in your favour. Offshore winds tend to be lighter than onshore winds in these situations. Wind gusts in Broome probably exceed 100 kilometres per hour. Still worth securing loose items, getting vehicles under cover if you can, trimming back any overhanging branches, standard preparations. But here where this system becomes more concerning. Rainfall. Tropical cyclones in this region bring substantial moisture. This one no different. Anywhere around and north of the landfall site, you are looking at significant accumulations. The northern Kimberley coastline from Derby north to Kalamburu can expect between 150 to 250 millimetres. Some locations could see 300 millimetres or more through the weekend. That's a lot of rain in a short period. And it's not just during the landfall. There is significant inflow moisture behind this system. That means the rain continues even after the cyclone moves inland. As we track this system through the weekend and into early next week, the remnant low-pressure system heads southeast into the Pilbara and central Western Australia. Around that storm centre, heavy showers and thunderstorms continue. This is where things get problematic for transport and infrastructure. The road network through central WA is about to cop a battering. The Great Central Road between Warburton and Giles, that Route S going to see substantial water across it. Same story for the road between Warburton and Laverton. If you're replanning to travel through this area, do it this weekend. Before the heaviest rain arrives late Sunday and into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, some of you might remember what happened back in March or April 2024. An ex-tropical cyclone tracked down into the Nullarbor region. Record-breaking rainfall, 300 to 500 millimetres in parts of the Nullarbor. Roads washed out. Travel impossible for weeks. We're relooking at a similar pattern here, though not quite as extreme. This system S moving faster than that one did, but we could still see significant accumulations around the Rawlinna and Kaiguna areas along the Nullarbor Plain. The Eyre Highway could see localised flooding and damage if you're planning to cross the Nullarbor. Get it done this weekend. By Monday, conditions deteriorate rapidly. Now, you might be wondering whether any of this moisture makes it to the southern states, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, the ACT, Tasmania. The short answer is no. Unfortunately, there's no relief coming for those areas. And in fact, this system S going to make conditions worse for you. As that low pressure system tracks southeast across the interior, its inflow band pushes desert heat northward and eastward. Hot air from central Australia gets drawn into New South Wales and Victoria. Sea breezes will be weak. That means the usual moderating influence from the coast, 1T, provide much relief. The southern states are facing an intense heat wave through next week. Parts of central New South Wales and inland Victoria are looking at temperatures approaching the mid to high 40s. Some locations in Western Queensland and far western New South Wales could see 49 degrees. One or two spots might touch 50 degrees Celsius. That's genuinely dangerous heat. Not just uncomfortable, dangerous. If you are in these areas, you need to take this seriously. Check on elderly neighbours. Make sure your mates in remote areas are sorted. Limit outdoor activity during the hottest parts of the day. Stay hydrated. Look after livestock. They'll need access to shade and water. Fire danger ratings will be extreme to catastrophic across large parts of inland New South Wales and Victoria. Total fire bans are likely. If you're in a bushfire-prone area, make sure your plan is up to date. Know what you're going to do if conditions deteriorate. Leaving early is always the safest option when fire danger reaches catastrophic levels. This heatwave isn't a one-day event. It persists through much of next week. By the time we get to next weekend, there might be some relief with a weak cool change. But that S still being worked out by the models. Right. Let S shift focus to the other area of concern. Far North Queensland and the Coral Sea, there's currently a tropical low 07U sitting in the Gulf of Carpentaria. This system S been monitored for the past few days. It S slowly being absorbed back into the monsoon trough. The structure S elongated, not well organised. The Bureau's assessment is that this system poses no significant threat to Queensland. Part of its remnant energy tracks over northern Queensland. The rest heads out into the Coral Sea toward Vanuatu and New Caledonia. However, and this is important, as this system gets reclaimed by the monsoon trough through Monday and Tuesday, we're likely to see a significant increase in moisture streaming into far north Queensland. That means heavy rainfall for the Daintree Coast, the Cassowary Coast and the Cairns area. This rain could extend south as far as the lower Herbert region and possibly Townsville. Rainfall accumulations through next week could reach 300 to 400 millimetres in some locations. The Cassowary Coast particularly could see up to 500 millimetres. That is a lot of rain, even for the tropics. But for that region at this time of year, it's not out of the ordinary. Still, it's enough to cause localised flooding, particularly in areas with poor drainage. This rainfall is going to be concentrated in the traditional wet season locations. Don't expect much further south. Townsville Townsville might see some rain, but it won to be substantial. Bowen, Mackay, those areas stay dry. From Monday onward, we're re-watching for significant convergence zone activity. That S, where moist air from different directions collides, forcing air upward and producing heavy rainfall. The Daintree coast looks most at risk Tuesday and Wednesday. The Cassowary coast Wednesday and Thursday. By Friday and into the following weekend, the rainfall eases back to scattered showers. Weekly rainfall totals along the Cassowary coast approach 400 to 500 millimetres in some spots. Again, nothing unusual for the wet season, but it's worth keeping an eye on. The Gulf of Carpentaria, southeast coast, and the west coast of Cape York Peninsula can expect hit or miss rainfall between 100 and 300 millimetres, mainly coastal locations. The northwestern Queensland coast and the Gulf country see lighter falls. This is more of a Cape York event. Now, here's where things get interesting, and I want to be very clear about how I am framing this. There is a long-range signal for something developing in the Coral Sea during the first week of February. I've been tracking this pattern for weeks. I wouldn't be bringing this up if I didn't think it was worth your attention, but I need to stress this is not an imminent threat. This is a signal, a pattern we are watching. What we are seeing in the long-range forecast models is an area of low pressure developing near Vanuatu and New Caledonia in early February. Multiple model runs over the past several days show this consistently, that S, what we call a signal. When you see the same pattern appearing in run after run, it suggests something S likely to develop. Some of the numerical forecast models are now starting to come on board with this as well. The European model, for instance, is showing a significant low pressure system in the Coral Sea during the first week of February. Now, and I cannot stress this enough, it is impossible at this range to say where this system will go, how strong it will be, or even if it will definitely develop. What we know right now is that there's an increasing signal of something forming out there and potentially moving toward the Queensland coastline. That's all we know. The specifics are beyond the reliable forecast range. What I can tell you is that the ensemble models, which run multiple forecast scenarios, show a cluster of low pressure centres in the Coral Sea. The general trend across these scenarios is westward movement toward Queensland. A few scenarios show the system tracking south toward New Zealand and Norfolk Island, but the majority trend is toward Queensland. This is supported by the latest Madden-Julian oscillation forecast. The MJO is a large-scale pattern of tropical convection that moves eastward around the globe. It influences where tropical systems develop. The current MJO forecast supports the potential for development in the Coral Sea region during early February. Now, here S, what this means for you. If you re along the Queensland coastline, this is not something to panic about. This is not an imminent cyclone threat. What it is a heads up. Something to check back on in about a week's time. You are going to see posts online. You are going to see sensational headlines, images showing a cyclone tracking straight toward the coast. Disregard those. They are misinterpreting long-range forecast data. Long-range models show possibilities. They show signals. They do not show certainties. Taking a specific model run from 10 days out and presenting it as what will happen is misleading at best. What I am telling you is that there is a consistent signal worth monitoring. That S, very different from saying a cyclone is definitely heading for Queensland. Over the past 12 months, long-range and ultra-long-range modelling has improved significantly. Artificial intelligence integration and model refinements, particularly in the European model, have increased accuracy. That S, why I am paying attention to this signal. But it is still long-range. Uncertainty is high. So along the Queensland coastline, here S, what you should do. Nothing drastic. Just keep it in the back of your mind. Check back in about a week. See if the signal is still there. See if it S becoming clearer. If it is, then we start looking at preparations. For now, it S awareness, not action. Right. Let's bring this together. Immediate concerns. Western Australia S northwest coast. Category 2 cyclone likely crossing near Derby Saturday morning. Winds 125 to 140 kilometres per hour. Heavy rainfall 150 to 300 millimetres northern Kimberley. Remnant moisture tracking into central WA and the Pilbara. Road closures likely through next week. Nullarbor Highway at risk of flooding, particularly around Rawlinna and Kaiguna, southern states. Intense heatwave building through next week. Temperatures mid to high 40s inland. Fire danger extreme to catastrophic. Total fire bans likely. No rainfall relief. Far North Queensland, heavy rain from Monday through next week. 300 to 500 millimetres possible. Daintree and Cassary coasts. Localised flooding likely. This is wet season rain, not unusual but significant. Long range signal, Coral Sea, early February, something potentially developing near Vanuatu, possibly tracking toward Queensland, too early for specifics. Monitor over the next week. Don-T panic, just be aware. For those in the cyclone impact zone, you know what to do. Secure loose items, get vehicles under cover, stock up on essentials before the system arrives. Charge devices, fill fuel tanks, have your emergency kit sorted. Batteries, torch, radio, first aid supplies, enough water and non-perishable food for several days. If you worry on the Nullarbor or planning central WA travel, change your plans. Get your travel done this weekend or delay until next week when roads are assessed and reopened. For the southern states dealing with extreme heat, this is serious. Elderly folks are at particular risk. Heat stroke, dehydration, heat exhaustion. Check on your neighbours, check on your mates. Make sure everyone has a way to stay cool. Air conditioning if possible. Fans at minimum, cold showers, wet towels, whatever works. If you've got livestock, make sure they have access to shade and clean water. Check water troughs twice a day. Animals suffer in this heat just as much as people do. Fire preparedness. If you're in a bushfire prone area and you haven't updated your bushfire plan, do it this weekend. Know your trigger points. Know when you're re-leaving. Know where you're re-going. Leaving early is always safest. Don-T, wait to see how bad it gets. Far North Queensland, you are used to heavy wet season rain, but Don-T, underestimate this. If you're in low-lying areas prone to flooding, keep an eye on the Bureau S warnings. Have a plan if you need to move to higher ground. Don-T, drive through floodwater ever. If it's flooded, forget it. For the Coral Sea signal, there's nothing you need to do right now beyond awareness. Check back in a week. See where the models are tracking. See if the signal strengthens or weakens. We'll have a much better picture by then. This is an active weather pattern across Australia. Multiple systems, multiple threats. But none of it is unmanageable if you are prepared and paying attention. The Bureau of Meteorology will continue updating their warnings and watches. Keep an eye on their website. Monitor local emergency services. SES, RFS, CFA, depending on your state. They'll have the most current information for your specific area. Stay safe, look after each other, and keep monitoring conditions as they develop. This isn't the time to be complacent, but it's not the time to panic either. Just be sensible, be prepared. That's the situation as it stands this Friday afternoon. Significant weather across the country. Western Australia, you're up first. Get your preparations sorted tonight. The system arrives Saturday morning. Southern states, brace for a rough week of heat. Far North Queensland, heavy rain is on the way. And everyone, keep an eye on the Coral Sea through early February. I'll be monitoring conditions and providing updates as systems develop. For now, that S where we